Washington mornings on the Mall. 105.9 FM. And AM 630. WMAL.
7:07 on WMAL. Coming up at 8:07, we'll have Dr. Betsy McCoy on. She has written a book called Beating Obamacare, News You Can Use. And then also at 8:37, our good friend from CNBC, Larry Kudlow. It is 7:07 on WMAL, where Washington comes to talk.
Good morning, Brian. We are joined now by Dan McConchie. He is the Vice President of Government Affairs for Americans United for Life. Today is the actual day, the 40th anniversary of the Roe v. Wade decision. And, of course, this Friday on the Mall will be the Life March right here in Washington, D.C. Dan McConchie, thanks for joining us this morning.
My pleasure, gentlemen. Thank you.
Let me ask you this. Recently, the Time magazine came out with a cover that said 40 years ago, abortion rights activists won an epic victory with Roe v. Wade, and they've been losing ever since. From your perspective over there at Americans United for Life, do you agree with that?
You know, absolutely. The interesting thing that has been happening over the last 40 years is there was this really big victory that the abortion advocates got, and then ever since we have been slowly chipping away, making advances, not only in legislation. I mean, we see every year more and more laws passed that protect unborn children across the country, but then we've also seen a real uptick in the number of people in this country who call themselves pro-life.
Well, and yet, Dan McConchie, the latest poll from Wall Street Journal, NBC News, just this week, says that a brand new majority now supports the Roe v. Wade decision and wants to keep abortion legal.
You know, it's always gone back and forth somewhat, but the trend has certainly been in the direction of protecting unborn human life. And the interesting thing, if you go through and really look at the numbers, the young people in this country are more pro-life than ever. It really is the people who are older, some of the people from the earlier generation, who were born in the 60s, that are the big supporters of this. But the young people, if you go to the mall on Friday, you're going to see hundreds of thousands of people, and 70% of those people are going to be under the age of 30. So the trend in this country, where the young people are going, absolutely is in the direction of being more pro-life. So,
I have a theory about that. I want to know what you think about why that is. I think it has to do with the advent of the sonogram.
That is a huge thing, absolutely. One of the interesting things is when a woman gets pregnant, one of the first things that you may see on Facebook is the picture of that ultrasound up on her wall. Sometimes is put in as her profile picture. The other thing that there really is I was born about 6 weeks before Roe versus Wade, and people my age and younger know that they're missing siblings, cousins, nieces, and nephews. 1/3 of everyone under the age of 40 is missing in this country. There's nobody under that age bracket that isn't somehow touched by this issue, and they know that there's something wrong. There's something missing in their lives.
All right. So this big march you have this weekend, what kind of crowds are you expecting? How many people are going to be in, and what do you hope to accomplish by the march?
One of the things, this march has been going on since the 1970s. We have hundreds of thousands of people every year that go out and march from the mall up to the Supreme Court to make their voice heard. And what this does is show the significant number of people in America who believe that this is one of the worst decisions handed down by the United States Supreme Court in American history. And that what the Supreme Court did in Roe versus Wade was essentially remove the opportunity for us to be able to make a decision through our elected representatives on what aspects of abortion will be legal or not. And the best thing that the Supreme Court can do in trying to reach some sort of resolution on this issue is to overturn Roe versus Wade, put this back in the hands of the people, let us decide, let the democratic process work, and then we would be able to get to a resolution that I think the vast majority of the people would believe and understand.
Dan McConchie is our guest. He's the Vice President for Government Affairs for Americans United for Life, and we're commemorating the 40th anniversary of the Roe v. Wade decision today. And, we talk about the ultrasounds, and it spurred to my mind the Virginia state law that was enacted last year, which makes a ultrasound compulsory before a abortion can take place. With that issue, plus Todd Aiken's statements on rape and abortion in the case of rape, as well as Richard Murdoch's statements during this last election cycle, many see those three incidents as a major factor in the Republicans losing the election because single women were really turned off by those three instances, the two politicians speaking of rape and the compulsory ultrasound, which many find to be an incredibly invasive thing. How do you defend that, and how do you think the conservatives need to move forward in better articulating their positions?
Well, first of all, the other side lied about what the ultrasound bill in Virginia did. What that bill did was simply mandate that an ultrasound has to be performed, and there are good medical reasons for doing so. This is a life-saving test. What it does is prove whether or not the woman's pregnant. If so, if there is any issues, is it an ectopic pregnancy, or is there risk or dangers? And then it gives women the opportunity, the option of being able to see a picture of that ultrasound. The other side lied completely about what it is that this bill would have done, and the legislature knew that was being done, and they decided that they were going to enact that bill anyway. One of the things that we know is that what this does is help it increase the amount of informed consent, increase the information that women are able to know, so that when they're making this decision, a life-changing decision, they can have as much information as possible. In regards to the Senate candidates for this year, I mean, it was a terrible statements to make. Rape is a horrible thing. But the fact is that if you look at what happened across the country, certainly we saw some of those people who made some of those idiotic statements lose. But at the same time, we saw people at the state level who were standing up for pro-life values be returned to office across the country. And these are people, the state legislatures is where really all the action happens. It's where we see new pro-life laws happen on a daily basis. And those people were returned to office overwhelmingly across the country.
I know that you care a great deal about the ethics of this issue as well. And last hour, I'm not kidding, we did a story about a Harvard scientist who believes that perhaps what needs to be done is clone a Neanderthal baby, and that they say they now have the technology to do just that. Do you have any thoughts about this kind of stuff that seems to crop up from time to time about the things we can do?
It's difficult to even know where to start. I mean, first of all, cloning technology doesn't even work very well. But even if it did, why are we doing this? Are we doing it just because we can? I mean, are we essentially creating a baby in this case in order to be the subject of scientific inquiry? I mean, this sounds like it would end up becoming a form of modern-day slavery. I mean, there's no, we have significant issues across this country and around the world, yet he's thinking of doing this simply because I think it would be interesting to do. I think that we certainly have our priorities out of whack if we think that the idea of bringing back prehistoric cave people is something that's worthwhile of our time and attention.
Dan McConchie, we've got to roll. You're the Vice President of Government Affairs for Americans United for Life, and this Friday is the March for Life, and people can still join up and be part of the throng out there. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you.